Hi, welcome back to another episode of Waking Up with Wandy on the Stock Showdown podcast. I, your host, Wandy, have a special guest and special treatment. Thank goodness he's been able to again fit us into his schedule with all the different rescheduling that we've done based on me with 4 kids and trying to manage that along with a full plate of school here. So I got this podcast in between periods here. So we are live from room 213 here, Sparta, New Jersey, Sussex County Technical School, and we are privileged to have Logan Shippy on the podcast here today. A little bit background on Logan here. He's an intuitive entrepreneur who's gotten lucky a few times, as he calls it. But I'm sure there's some hard work along the way that got him to here, and the car just, I guess, fell in his lap in the right place at the right time. But I'm sure Logan will get into that as we dissect this podcast here. And after building multiple companies to millions of dollars per year in sales, he believes he is still just getting warmed up here. His primary skill set and strengths are in marketing and sales. So I know I have a lot of students that are interested in pursuing marketing in college. So listen up. They're student members here. And he's weaponized. I love the word. I love the verb there. Weaponized these talents to impact people's lives for the better through his e-commerce. That's a good buzzword because that's the program that my students are in, is what's called e-commerce and software companies. So I am so happy to have Logan Shippy on the show today. Thank you, Logan.
What's up? What's up? I'm glad to be here and to drop some value and some nuggets for those of you who are listening in today. So, yeah, let's jump right into it, man.
Let's do it. So you had said, and I quote, got lucky, air quotes there for those that aren't watching the video, but lucky a few times. So why don't you give us your journey, because you are an entrepreneur, but probably never, didn't start as an entrepreneur, but something down the road did this epiphany, this aha moment, like this is what I want to do. Can you shed some light? Tell us the story here, Logan.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in California, right by the beach, surfing, skateboarding, really just living an active lifestyle growing up. My dad, my mom, they run a business, landscape construction. My aunts and uncles, they're involved in real estate, landscape, and construction as well. My grandpa ran a multi-million-dollar vitamin business. And so just entrepreneurship in general was in my blood growing up. Like it was no other option but getting started in business for yourself because I thought it was normal. And so around the age of probably 16, 17, I started working in restaurants. Remember, I actually worked at my dad's jobs a couple times with the construction and stuff. And he realized that I wasn't so good at that. He told me, son, use your brain and not your back. You're one of those types of guys. So, I realized that I had a passion for marketing and sales at a pretty early age on. And one of the things that really helped me in marketing and sales was actually working in restaurants, which is kind of a weird correlation, but let me put it together, because when you work in a restaurant, and you become a server, your goal is to serve the person and to extract money out of them in the form of a tip, right? And I got really good at becoming a server. I worked in some nicer, not hotels, like Italian restaurants and whatnot, 16, 17, 18. I started producing engineering music as well, simultaneously with that. And then I built, the music business side by side when I was, building up those people skills, if you will, working in the restaurant industry, to the point where music made me enough money producing and engineering that I could actually step away from the restaurant job, which was cool. So that was like my first entrepreneurial journey outside of the restaurant business. And I learned a lot of people skills working in the restaurant industry, transitioned to music. And I realized pretty quickly with the whole music thing that it was a passion, but like didn't have a really high upside reward on the paycheck side of things. Yes, I was making enough to get by, maybe like 30 grand a year in that range. And then I still had that passion for marketing and sales. And I was technically recruiting clients, like bringing them into my home studio that I had built. But again, I knew that there had to be more out there. And I started seeing that people were making money online. This was like back in 2014 or 2015 in that range. This is when like Instagram was first kind of popping off. And, I saw that people were driving traffic online, selling items online. People were in network marketing, affiliate marketing. And I'm like, man, this could be my way to level up, being able to sell, whether it's a digital product online or a physical product online, to be able to leverage other people's efforts and whatnot. with like a multi-tier type commission model. And so I got involved in network marketing when I was about like 18. And within that year, I went from making like 30 grand to over 100,000+ in a year. And I was like, man, I am hooked on the internet, because this is the way, like, you can reach so many people. You can sell digital products online, physical products, whatever. So went from, restaurants to music to network marketing, reached the 1%, making multiple six figures per year in my early 20s. And then I got kind of fed up with like some of the stuff that happens in network marketing, like, the attrition rate, like people coming in, people going out. You have to be kind of a cheerleader and like trying to pump people up to go. Because really what you're doing is you're recruiting a network of customers and also sales reps. And you're only making a smaller piece of the pie. Like, maybe the company goes and makes $100 and you only get paid like $1 or $10, like 1 to 10% on the total volume. And so I realized, there had to be something else, because I got really good at like the skill of marketing and recruiting. And again, I can attribute a lot of this to my restaurant days, right? Like just learning how to deal with customers. And then I started plugging into personal development and reading books and, realizing that I could grow as an individual, which helped me blossom into a person who was making six figures per year at a young age. So I got lucky there. Going back to your original question, you got lucky. How'd you get lucky? Well, I got lucky in the sense of being at the right spot at the right time and applying the right skill set to then go make some significant income at, early 20s, like 19, 20 years old. And then this was a couple years later, a friend that I had met actually through the network marketing industry had approached me, and he was like, hey, you're really good at marketing and sales. Like, you've built teams of 10,000+ people. And what if you were to like own a product and you were like the marketing guy behind it, but it was software, and we could keep, 80 to 100% of profitability. And I was just like, man, that's awesome. I would love to build software, but I have no idea how to make that happen. And so he ended up, we went down the rabbit hole of looking for developers, and we finally found a team of developers, and we built out a software that helped basically people grow their followings on social media. And that software ended up doing like, I think we did like $2.6 million in sales in 9 months, something like that. And that was the first software we had ever launched. And so I used my skill from marketing and sales, and then, my understanding of affiliate marketing. Like, I incentivized some people with some affiliate commissions to promote, and it just rippled out. It grew. And then that led into more software builds, like being able to, help people build apps and technology, because I had the development team, which then led into us building another platform that's called TrueFans. And so TrueFans is a platform that's kind of like Patreon, or, maybe other people have heard of OnlyFans before, but we don't allow any adult content. We're a clean platform, wholesome. We launched this back in right in January of 2020, when the pandemic hit, for TrueFans. And, I didn't necessarily have a ton of connections to influencers. Like, that's a kind of outside of my realm, if you will. But I thought, you know what? If OnlyFans is doing millions of dollars a day, millions. Like, I don't know if people know that, but they're doing upwards of like $3 to $5 million a day in sales. And when I found that out, I went, okay, well, OnlyFans, Patreons, these other platforms out there, they're good, but the biggest room is the room for improvement. So we ended up talking to a lot of creators out there that use these types of platforms. And we asked them, hey, what do you like about this? What don't you like? What could make this better? And then we went to work and built the platform, which is now TrueFans. To date, we now have over 1,000+ creators. We have like over 150,000+ users from across the world that have plugged into our platform. Our platform's doing millions a year in sales. And again, we launched in 2020 and bootstrapped it 100% self-funded. So that's another way that I got lucky, if you will, just right spot, right time, right technology. And then kind of simultaneously, while all this stuff was happening with like the network marketing, the software stuff, like I was intrigued by the e-commerce world. And so, one of my partners named Manny, he had built out a really great infrastructure for like sourcing, hiring, and training employees. He built out a virtual assistant agency, and he started designating a lot of those employees to more so automate a lot of the tasks with an e-commerce business. And so Manny's a phenomenal backend guy. Like, the systems and structure that he's been able to build for real estate, for brick and mortar businesses, for e-commerce is insane. but he's not a front end guy. He's the guy that sits in the back, develops the blueprints, puts the right people in place, and builds businesses that do, 8 and upwards of 9 figures in revenue. So Manny and I, we had been friends for like almost a decade. And he had talked to me for, this was months on end. And I had seen a lot of operations in the e-commerce space just through my network of friends. And I had not seen such an amazing infrastructure built to be able to scale stores. So here's an example. Manny went, okay, we could scale e-commerce stores ourselves, or we could take on investors and use their capital to scale stores. We have connections to suppliers. We could essentially leverage the capital of investors and treat this almost like a fund, if you will, and generate investors passive returns, do a profit split rev share model. And the problem is again, Manny isn't a front end guy. So he brought me into the business to help showcase what we do, right? So simultaneously right now, as far as my day-to-day tasks go, I have, the software business, True Fans, where we're recruiting creators and building that out. And then, I have a lot of systems in place where there's an outreach team that we built to reach out to influencers and introduce them. And then we have digital assets that explain how the platform works and, just drips on the people and gets them educated and helps them launch their channels and generate revenue. And then I also have my business, which is called Intelligence, which is the e-commerce business, where we, take on investors and we scale their e-commerce stores for them. The cash flow that I'm generating from all of these businesses is going back into crypto. It's going back into real estate. It's going into other assets that produce cash flow. So from network marketing, I got lucky, to software creation, I got lucky, to e-commerce, like building stores, I got lucky. And what it all ties back to is my ability to communicate a product or service in marketing form, right? In video assets, content, et cetera, and get it in front of the right individual to pique their interest and then have the systems in place to sell and bring those clients into an ecosystem. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot overview of what I got going on.
I love it. And it all stems from, if I go back to your story, thank you for sharing that, Logan. That was a great story. Going back to your youth, and I see a lot of parallels in my own life, where you were working in a construction industry, and your father said, "Look, you're not cut out for this. Go use your mind, not your body." Truth be told, I appreciate, I really do, the hands-on blue-collar workers, because when I lost my job in 2008 during the financial crisis, I had no other choice but to find something. And my brother-in-law and father-in-law, God bless them, gave me an opportunity in the paving industry. So I started paving driveways for about a couple summers there until I got back on my feet. But they always kept coming back to me like, "Oh, you're a teacher now. Well, you have summers off. Why don't you come back and do some blue-collar work with us?" So I have such a fine appreciation for the people that do the blue-collar work, but it's not for everybody, and I'd rather use this, my mind, than the body. So I see a parallel there. In addition, you said working in a restaurant. I grew up working in a restaurant probably for about 4 years or so. And, again, it's just enhancing that people skill. I've always had that, and I guess maybe it transcends into what I do as a teacher, that I'm selling a lesson every day. I'm selling a lesson, an idea to a group of high school students, and they got to buy in each and every day. So I always feel like I'm on stage performing every day. And hopefully, again, I'll be at the right place at the right time. I think you said it best there. And I also, one more thing I think that you were spot on with, and I love it, I'm probably going to use this for the title of the podcast, is the biggest room is the room for improvement. I think that was so phenomenal, because people get complacent and content and don't want to improve. But I love the idea of constantly pushing yourself to new highs. So that was really awesome, Logan. Thank you.
Yeah. And, there's obviously more to my story as an entrepreneur, a lot of adversities I've faced. It's not like I just got lucky every single time without failure. There were, situations where we wasted $50,000 trying to find the right developers to build software and technology. There are, times where I invested into assets that didn't pan out and lost money, but my wins are far greater than my losses. And in business, it's like when you hit a home run, it's not as if you just get 4 bases sometimes. Like you could go get 50 bases on one home run in business, the way that it can quantify. So, an example of this is the most money that, as far as cash flow, that's being generated is from our e-commerce business. And, what we're doing right now is we're building it up as far as we take on investors, right? We leverage their capital. Right now we have 250 plus investors, over 300 plus stores under management. We have 500 plus employees on payroll. We own our warehouses, systems, softwares, IP, all that stuff in-house. And what we're doing is we're basically approaching suppliers, taking their supply, listing that supply, those products used amongst the client's stores that we manage for them. And then we become the online distribution for these offline suppliers. Simultaneously, the cash flow that we generate from these assets, we're taking that cash flow and then reinvesting into manufacturing products ourselves or to scooping up supply from liquidators. And then it's almost like flywheel economics where it's all designed to pump itself. So we take on investors again, leverage their capital, generate them passive cash flow. And this type of business model that we're building right now has the potential to, be one of those scenarios where we could suck $1 billion in sales out of these seller marketplaces like Amazon, Facebook, and Walmart, build up all these assets under management. And then you have this crazy buyout scenario. Like you look at Conor McGregor, he built up a whiskey company in how many years and sold it for $100 million.
Yeah.
That's more than a 4-base run, my dudes. That's a huge success. And so not all, like, again, it's totally cool to just hit those like ground base, or just like a single base, get a man on base, right? Like I think that's a big problem that we could both agree with entrepreneurship. It's like everyone wants to be in the Lamborghini. Like, bro, I drive a Prius. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to be Mr. Flex. Like what's more important to me is like owning assets like this house I own in full, like I have the deed on this thing, and investing into things that, like, I have a 3-year-old son almost, he's almost 3. Yeah. And you probably hear some background noise, him, riding around on his little bicycle and taunting my dog. But yeah, it's just more important to create. As I got older, I'm 29 now. So as I've gotten older, there were different iterations of motivation. So, let's say for your high school type students that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, what motivates them now is going to be much different than what motivates them 10 years from now and 20 years from now. So I was motivated by material things in the beginning. And then I was motivated by experiences like traveling. So it was like the watches, the cars. And I'm like, you know what? Once I started traveling the world, I'm like, fuck, I want to see more countries. I want to see different cultures.
Right.
And traveling isn't cheap. So it's like to make more money to be able to travel. And then once I had my son, it was like legacy, building things that could even outlast me. So with that being said, just for all of you guys on here, yeah, it's cool to hit the giant home run. It's cool to focus on getting the Lambo or the private jet or whatever, but like also don't lose sight of, it's important. If you can go make $500 a month from a stream of income, $1,000 a month, and you can kind of compound a few of those, that eventually will create a home run as well. So that's something super important to keep in mind. Because again, a lot of people just focus on how do I make 10 grand a month? Well, dude, are you making 2,000 or 3,000 online? Because if you can figure out a way to do that, that's still a major win.
Just got to move that needle. Move the needle a little bit. Just get on base. Ring the register, as my father-in-law would say. Like, you just got to get out there and grind it. And I appreciate all the insight, Logan. That's fantastic. Now, real quick, one thing that you mentioned, I want to get your take on it, because my students would probably ask, because it's grabbing major headlines right now. And you had said that you take some of the cash flow that the business generates and reinvest it into different projects. Perhaps one is real estate, and 2 is crypto. Because again, this is a hot topic for my students right now. is the current crypto market, obviously with everything else right now, is experiencing extreme volatility. Is there any places in particular in the crypto market that you particularly focus on, or are we talking about just why in general crypto investing?
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to tell you guys is just be careful with leverage. Like, let's say that and I've had this happen to me where, I got cocky. I thought, okay, I can kind of take loans out against my crypto and buy more crypto and then get into a situation where you're in over your head. And, that's called leverage, whether you're leverage trading on a platform or using it in some capacity in DeFi. Just crypto assets are extremely volatile no matter what you're looking at. If you're looking at Bitcoin, if you're looking at Ethereum, if you're looking at Luna, if you're looking at, Cardano, whatever, they're all for the most part very volatile risk on assets. And what we're seeing right now is, so the first thing, again, careful with leverage. Like, I suggest don't use it. Richard Hart, who's a multi-billionaire in this space, he says there's 3 things that'll ruin you: ladies, liquor, and leverage. So as a joke, but seriously. Anyway, so going back to it, so I mean, you can't necessarily go wrong buying Bitcoin if you have a long time horizon and you believe in Web3 and, just the overall growth of the market. Bitcoin is king, and it's going to remain king for a long time. I don't really foresee anything surpassing it, at least not for a while. So if you were to go conservative, maybe put like 80% of your money in Bitcoin, because historically it's gone up, almost 200% a year against the dollar. And that's relatively with low institutional adoption. Like, it's been retail, average ma and pa, like people like us, degenerates that are just buying in, right? And then you got institutions, which are buying in, which they're not, putting in $1, $5, $10, their paycheck. They're putting in millions and millions and millions of dollars. So that's something to be aware of. But also with institutions comes correlation of different markets, because if an institution is now moving the needle on Bitcoin and the whole crypto market as in entirety, they are going to be following suit with other markets. So you can see the correlation between the NASDAQ and Bitcoin, S&P, Bitcoin, like it all kind of moves in synergy because it's all relatively the same money. And so what we're seeing right now is a lot of people want to be in cash because of inflation and because of, just uncertain times in the world and the Fed tapering and federal, that's a whole separate conversation, but it all ties in, right? Like the Fed wants to cool down the markets, and there's still a ton of room for them to squeeze the markets. Because if you look at real estate right now, it was like, I think it was $7 trillion pumped in value in real estate as a whole. And even though the stock market and crypto has seen a major decline lately, there's still so much room in the real estate market for it to fall that the Fed still has a ton of room to tighten with monetary policy and whatnot before real estate can really crumble, which then what does that mean for the stock market and crypto market? We could see Bitcoin down at, 20 grand, maybe even lower. So what I do know is the fact that if you have some capital on the side and you believe that crypto is here to stay, it could see still some pretty drastic volatility to the downside just because of overall macro conditions, like with what's going on in Russia and what's going on with the Fed and what's going on with all this stuff in governments and monetary policy. But that's huge opportunity for those who believe in it long term. So I don't think it's ever necessarily a bad investment to park money in let's say Bitcoin specifically, if your time horizons are set long enough. Like if you're thinking in terms of 3 months, you're probably going to get wrecked, most likely. If you're thinking in terms of 3 years or 5 years or even 30 years, like, dude, you're most likely going to win. Just invest, park some money, chill, forget about it. It's like you planted a seed and wait for that seed, that acorn to grow into a tree, like that's really kind of all you have to do with crypto. Because most people that trade and stuff end up losing money in crypto. So I would just say, be careful. The world is getting digitized. So the needle or the ball is headed in that direction. Like you want to be in the end zone before the ball gets there. The end zone is crypto, but what assets are going to succeed and fail? Probably 90% of them are going to fail. 10% are going to win. Allocate accordingly. Put probably more money in Bitcoin versus these other ones. If you hit a couple that fly in price, you should probably take a good portion of those profits into Bitcoin and just chill. So that's just like my whole philosophy on crypto. I'm very optimistic about the long-term appreciation, but also very realistic with the fail rate of most of these assets. Just like in the dot-com boom, how many companies from the dot-com boom are still around today?
Perfect way to, I guess, conclude our podcast here. Logan Shippy, thank you very much for joining us on the Stock Showdown podcast. Great insight. I didn't think we were going to get into macroeconomics, but that's going to be a treat for my students in the afternoon here, because that's the course I'm teaching right now is macroeconomics. So they love to hear it, not just from me, but from somebody else's perspective. So that was beautiful. Final parting words. Biggest room is room for improvement. Love it. And 3 things that you could get ruined by: liquor, ladies, leverage. I love it, Logan. It was a pleasure having you on the Stock Showdown podcast. This is Wandy, your host, and Logan Shippy signing off. God bless everybody.